He makes promises to them, he fills them with hope, and the devil promises them nothing but deception. Isn't that what the munafiqun did with the Jewish tribes? Filled them with hope. Inna shaytana lil insani aduwwun mubin. Now this gets a little deeper. The devil, Allah says, the devil is an enemy to all humanity, which means he's not just an enemy of the Muslims. He's also the enemy of the enemies of Islam. He's also the enemy of the Jewish tribes. He's the enemy of Quraysh also. The devil is an enemy to everybody. He wants to see Islam is the immediate problem. It's the big problem. So let's get this problem solved by getting these people to fight these people. If I get rid of Islam, then am I going to sit back and let them live a life of peace? No, then I'm going to get them to fight each other. Then I'm going to get them to kill each other. And when some of them survive and they live a little, they get a little prosperous, then I'll get them to kill each other again. I just want to see fires started. I just want to create fasads. Whether it's between Islam and kufr or between kufr and kufr, I don't care. You think, for example, shaitan is only working in this world to disrupt the cause of Islam, or is shaitan actively also destroying Christian homes, also actively destroying Hindu families, actively ruining atheist lives, etc. Like he just wants everybody destroyed. He doesn't just pump the waswasa of alcohol and drugs and zina and all of that into Muslims so they can be misled. He wants to pump that in all of humanity. He wants to destroy all of humanity, right? So even and similarly the munafiqun, Allah is saying, they just like creating chaos. Even though they're making alliances with the Jewish tribes, actually Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the leader of the munafiqun, didn't like the Jewish tribes. Before the coming of the Prophet ﷺ, they had beef. They had problems, right? So they don't have any alliances. It's just, for now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And when I get rid of this enemy, well, you're my enemy, back to being my enemy again. So they have truly no loyalties, just like the shaitan can become the enemy, or can become the wali of the kuffar, but that's not going to last. He's there to just use you, and then move on, and then turn on you. In this life and in the next. تالله لقد أرسلنا إلى أمم من قبلك فزين لهم الشيطان أعمالهم فهو وليهم اليوم. Allah says, I swear by Allah, we had sent to many nations before you, and the devil beautified their deeds to them, and he became their wali, their protective friend, for now, today. But in the end, لهم عذاب أليم. They'll have painful punishment. The al-yawm is really interesting. For now, he's their wali. Today, he's their wali. But what about tomorrow? Well, we're going to see tomorrow when Judgment Day comes, he's going to say, hey, I wasn't in control. You made your own choices. I had nothing to do with you. Right now acting like the wali. Right now acting like the wali. لَقَدْ أَضَلَّنِي عَنِ الذِّكْرِ بَعْدَ إِذْ جَاءَنِي. Another tactic of the shaitan. Shaitan wants you to forget after you remember. You came to remembrance and then he wants you to forget. And exactly what munafiqun do. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا. ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا. They believe, then they disbelieve. They had the remembrance, then they go into forgetfulness. And Allah says about the shaitan, وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِلْإِنسَانِ خَذُولًا. The shaitan is khadul. It's a really cool word in Arabic. One of the words for friend is khadul in Arabic. You may be familiar with khalil and sadiq and rafiq, right? Khadul is one of those words. Some of you may have a khadul friend, or maybe not anymore. But khadul is someone who acts like your friend the whole time until the day you need him. Then he disappears. Then he shows his true colors. Then you find the day you needed someone to cover your back, he's the first one to stab your back. That kind of a friend is called khadul. Okay? So don't text somebody, hey bro, I got a new nickname for you. Or change somebody's contact name on your... hey, Khalil, okay. That's what the shaitan is, showing his true colors right at the end. Isn't that what the munafiqun did with Banu Nadir? By the way, when Banu Nadir were attacked and the Muslims were laying siege, some of the munafiqun that were making promises to them, where are they? They're on the outside, and the guy's looking from the window of the fort like, huh? He made all these promises. He's like, sorry bro, in the end I gotta look out for number one. I didn't really mean it. I was just saying, I didn't think it would happen. This is khadul. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. This is the hypocrite. So all these ayat about how the shaitan becomes a wali to disbelievers, right? Now listen to this. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين. Believers, do not take disbelievers as awliya as opposed to other believers. أتريدون أن تجعلوا لله عليكم سلطانا مبينا. Do you want that Allah should have a clear case against you on Judgment Day? إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار. Very next ayah. The hypocrites are in the lowest pit of the hellfire. Meaning, who do the hypocrites make alliances with? With the enemies of Allah and His Messenger. So they make the wrong alliances. They make awliya with them like the shaitan does. And so finally we get to this really interesting case. And that happens in the Battle of Badr. In Badr, this really interesting thing happened. The Quraysh were convinced that they need to fight the Muslims. So they came out to fight. In fact, if you study the seerah carefully, you'll know that before the Quraysh came out to fight with the Muslims in the Battle of Badr, there was actually a debate happening inside Mecca whether or not we should fight Muhammad at all. Whether we should fight him at all or not. Why? One group said his religion is dangerous, it's going to change everything, we need to eliminate this threat, we need to fight. Another group was saying, no, wait, he seems to be successful, he's already got huge influence in Medina, and maybe even other places, and in the end, he is a Qurayshi national, so it's one of our guys in the end that's expanding in influence, so this might even be a good thing, this might be an expansion for Meccan influence. So what if he's a different religion? It's still a victory for Quraysh. In the end, he's a Qurayshi, right? So there was this debate going on between the hawks and the doves, the left wing and the right wing, right? So one were thinking more domestic, one were thinking foreign policy and safety, and they were having this debate. And of course, in the end, when they heard about the Prophet ﷺ attacking one of the trade caravans that was heading to Sham, then they said, no, this is a threat to our economy. We can't mess with that. We're going to go after him. So the hawks won, the extreme right wing won, and they came out into the battle. But the way Allah describes this battle, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. This is on Judgment Day, by the way. Well, actually, I'll do the Judgment Day last. وَإِذْ زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. When the devil beautified their deeds for them, meaning the Quraysh, when they came out to kill the Prophet ﷺ in the Battle of Badr. وَقَالَ لَا غَالِبَ لَكُمُ الْيَوْمِ. And when the devil sold to them, no one will overcome you today. The devil is giving them a pep talk. Shaitan is saying, لا غالب لكم اليوم. Sounds like the munafiqun that they were doing to Banu Nadir, no? And then he says, min nas. From no human beings will able, and it's interesting, the devil was careful enough to say min nas, right? Among the people, ain't nobody going to beat you today. وَإِنِّي جَارٌ لَكُمْ. And I'm right by your side, right? لَإِنُّ خُرِجْتُمْ لَنَخْرُجَنَّ مَعَكُمْ. We're with you. The devil said, I'm with you. فَلَمَّا تَرَاءَتِ الْفِئَتَانِ. And when he saw the two groups coming together, and actually what the shaitan saw is also the armies of Allah. He saw the angels descending in Badr. He's like, oh. Oh. So then what does he say? نَكَصَ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ. He turns back on his heels. وَقَالَ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكُمْ. He said, I have nothing to do with you. I have nothing to do with you, right? And then he says, "Inni ara ma la tarawun." I see what you can't see. Inni akhafu Allah. I'm afraid of Allah. Wallahu shadidul iqab, and Allah takes great punishment. That's shaitan talking. Was he afraid of Allah or afraid of the angels? Technically. Well, all this behavior, no fear of Allah. When does the fear of Allah conveniently show up? When he sees the armies of Allah. When he sees the armies of Allah, then for a moment he has fear. He calls it the fear of Allah, but it's really the fear of the armies of Allah. It's clear from the text, Inni ara ma la tarawun. He's not seeing Allah, he's seeing the armies of Allah, right? What did we learn about the munafiqun? We saw la antum ashaddu rahbatan fi sudurihim min Allah. They have more fear of you than they have of Allah. Who is the army of Allah in dunya? The Sahaba. Right? The devil all of a sudden gets fear of Allah, more than Allah, just the fear of, and he calls it the fear of Allah. But the munafiqun and the Yahud, who did they have fear of? The army of the Muslims. This was the parable that was drawn in this remarkable parable. So now let's read it again. Just like the devil who says to the human being, become kafir. As if the munafiqun are saying, the munafiqun had access to the Prophet ﷺ. They had access to the Quran. They had access to the knowledge of the ghaib, the correct knowledge of the ghaib. They were in close, intimate company of the Prophet ﷺ. And they have close connections to the Jewish tribes. They were in the best position to give Islam to the Jewish tribes because they had connections to them. But instead of using that connection for good, what did they use it for? To push them further into kufr. To push them further into kufr. You know, it reminds me of the jinn. The jinn have more knowledge of the unseen than you and I have. We have to take courses on the unseen and learn about the angels. The jinns have seen the angels, right? The jinns have seen shaitan, right? They have more access to the unseen. And they have access, some of them lived many, many thousands of years, Allahu Alam, because when they heard in Surah Al-Ahqaf, when they heard Rasulullah ﷺ reciting Quran in Ta'if, when he was reciting Quran in Ta'if, some of the jinns said, "Inna sami'na kitaban unzila min ba'di Musa." We're hearing a book sent down after Musa. Strange thing to say. What was given to Musa alayhi salam? Tawrat. Tawrat was given in Arabic. It was given in Hebrew. It was given thousands of years ago. And some of these jinns remember the Tawrat of Musa, and now they're saying, we're hearing the same author again in Arabic in this land. Yahdi ila al-haq wa ila tariqi mustaqim. They have remarkable knowledge, don't they? Because they've been around and they have access to an area of reality that we don't have access to with our plain eyes. The munafiqun had profound access to the truth, which makes them more punishable. Them being instigators of falsehood, them being instigators of crime, worse than ever. And so now we come to the final understanding of this ayah. And that is that actually Allah is through this describing that the worst, most disloyal creation of Allah is Iblis. He will show his ultimate disloyalty on Judgment Day. There are people who followed Iblis their entire lives. And when finally Judgment Day comes, وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ, and the devil will say when the decision will all be settled, it'll all be done deal, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. In fact, Allah made a promise to you, a promise that was absolutely true. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ, and I also made promises to you. فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ, and I went back on my word. Now he's talking straight, right? No more لا غالب لكم اليوم من الناس. None of that now. فأخلف, I just went back on it. وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان. It's not like I haven't had any power over you. It's not like I had control over you. And Allah told us in the very beginning of creation, إن عبادي ليس لك عليهم سلطان. Allah told him to his face, my servants, you will have no authority over them. He's repeating Allah's words on Judgment Day. The ones in the beginning of the story of creation, we're hearing these words at the end of creation from shaitan. He remembers, he says, I never had any power over you. مَا كَانَ لِي عَلَيْكُم مِّن سُلْطَانٍ إِلَّا أَن دَعَوْتُكُمْ. All I could do was invite you. That's the only thing I could do. I had the power to invite you. فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي, and you responded to me. You responded to me. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي, then don't blame me. وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Blame yourselves. What are you blaming me for? He says, مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَأَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِيَّ. I'm not going to be yelling at you today. I'm not going to get mad at you about nothing. And I don't think you should be mad at me about anything. We're all just let's just live the barbecue together now. It is what it is. Okay? إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِي مِنْ قَبْلِ. I deny all the ways in which you made me divine before. You made me a partner to Allah before. All the devil worship you did. All the sanctimony you did, all the loyalty you showed me, I deny, reject all of it. إِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. The fact of the matter is, it's always been true, people who do wrong are going to get painful punishment. That's the devil talking in the Quran on Judgment Day, letting us know where humanity stands in the end. This is now being compared to munafiqun. You would think in Surah Al-Hashr, that Allah will talk about the Jewish tribes and their treachery, right? Which He does. But actually, far more intense a criticism in these ayat is not of the Jewish tribes, but it's actually of the munafiqun. And what's even more remarkable is one of the spiritual climaxes of the Quran, the highest spiritual place in the Quran, of our relationship with Allah and our relationship with the word of Allah is right in the following ayat. In the following ayat, you see, for example,
Allah will say in the next parable, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل, if we sent this Quran on a mountain. The parable of the Quran being coming